They called him Dylan. Mid-30s, fresh MBA, hair gelled into submission, and a LinkedIn headline that screamed change agent. The kind of guy who quoted Steve Jobs and thought disruption meant replacing the coffee machine with oat milk only. I first met him on a Wednesday. I was halfway through finalizing a federal compliance report, the kind of paperwork you don't touch without gloves and a license. When Dylan waltzed into the open-floor bullpen with the confidence of a man who had once read Harvard Business Review on a plane. "Hi, team," he beamed, flashing a smile that probably cost $3,000 in Invisalign. "I'm here to shake things up, streamline operations, and cut inefficiencies." I didn't even look up, but I felt his eyes hover over me like a drone on a power line. The CFO trailed behind him, fake smiling, whispering something about empowering leadership. Corporate for, we're letting the new guy swing the axe before the real boss gets back from his 3-week yacht trip. By lunch, Dylan had already renamed half the Slack channels, posted an efficiency challenge on the company bulletin board, and called me into his glass-walled office for a quick chat. "Hey, Tessa, right?" He didn't wait for my answer. "I've been looking over the org chart and, well, I noticed you're kind of everywhere." He grinned like he'd caught me stealing office pens. "Legacy roles can sometimes clog the system. You've been here how long?" 8 years, I said, flat. "Wow, that's a lot," he replied, the way someone talks about a VCR they found in their grandma's attic. "Listen, I really value institutional knowledge, but moving forward, I'll be streamlining compliance oversight, reallocating responsibilities, reallocating. Translation, you're out." I didn't blink, just leaned forward slightly. "You're the acting manager now?" He nodded, chest puffed. "Yep, and I want to foster a lean, agile culture. You understand?" "Oh, I understood." I smiled. The kind of smile you give right before you step off a landmine, after making sure everyone else is still standing on it. "Of course," I said. "If you need anything signed, just let me know." He waved his hand. "I'll loop in HR. They'll handle the, formalities." By 4 p.m., I had a meeting request in my inbox. Subject line, transition conversation. Classic. I showed up in the HR office, nodded through the empty platitudes about company direction and nothing personal, and signed the termination paperwork without a word. They slid over a glossy exit packet. No severance, no explanation, just a pen and a pre-printed form. I signed in one stroke and walked out without a backward glance. I don't think Dylan even realized I was gone until 2 days later. When procurement flagged a hold on 3 critical shipments for lack of authorized compliance officer approval, when finance emailed an internal alert, licenses pending invalidation per Section 9B, and when the company's main operating license, the one tied exclusively to my certifications, was formally marked as revoked pending reauthorization. Per my signed agreement, all company-paid certifications became void upon termination. And Dylan? He hadn't read the contract. Monday morning arrived with the grace of a heart attack in a boardroom. I sat at home in sweatpants, sipping coffee, scrolling through LinkedIn, watching Dylan's carefully curated leadership journey post about embracing hard decisions gain exactly 3 likes, 2 from interns, 1 from his mom. And then the real fun began. An all-staff email from legal. Subject line, urgent compliance review, mandatory attendance. Sent at 7:12 a.m. I could practically hear the sirens blaring from my apartment. Because when the CEO walked in later that morning, fresh from his Monaco yacht trip, sun-kissed, espresso in hand, and asked, "Why the hell did you fire Tessa?" The silence that followed was louder than any siren. By the time the CEO's voice echoed through the glass atrium, the entire operations wing froze like deer in fluorescent headlights. Gregory Winslow, 56, leather tan, rumored to play golf with senators, wasn't the kind of man who raised his voice often. When he did, careers quietly died. Dylan stammered something about streamlining and modernizing compliance structures. Gregory cut him off with a single look. You fired the person with sole federal compliance authority? Dylan opened his mouth, closed it. Around them, the room shifted. Managers pretended to check their phones. Assistants shuffled papers that didn't need shuffling. Gregory turned to legal. Is this true? The legal director, Mark, the kind of man who wore pocket squares like armor, cleared his throat. We were told it was part of an efficiency initiative. Gregory gave a dry laugh. Efficiency. He stared straight at Dylan. Did you even read her contract? Dylan straightened up like a student trying to impress a teacher who caught him cheating. It was a standard termination. Section 9B, Gregory snapped. Company-paid certifications void upon termination. Regulatory compliance licensing immediately invalidated. Which means, Mark finished for him. We are non-compliant. Effective the moment she signed the exit paperwork. Silence. You could have heard a paperclip hit the floor. The junior compliance analyst, I think her name was Renee, muttered, almost too quietly, "The license can't be reinstated without her credentials." Gregory blinked. How long would that take? Renee hesitated. 4, maybe 6 weeks, assuming she agrees to come back and reapply, assuming the federal board accepts it. Gregory exhaled, slow. Has anyone called Tessa? HR chimed in, voice shaking. We sent a follow-up. She hasn't replied. Gregory turned on his heel and pointed straight at Dylan. You have 12 hours to fix this. Dylan gave a tight nod. The kind you make when you realize your parachute is just a backpack. I wasn't even home when Dylan's email hit my inbox. Subject line, let's discuss a path forward. Excited to collaborate. I was at brunch. Eggs Benedict, bottomless mimosas, and a view of the city skyline. I opened the email on my phone between sips of champagne. It was packed with corporate nonsense. Realize your value. Want to align our visions. Opportunity for growth. I scrolled straight to the bottom. Offer, return in a consulting capacity. 6 months. Reduce salary, but with performance incentives. Plus a mutual NDA. Of course. I smiled. Flagged it. Didn't reply. By 3 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time from an unknown number. I answered on the 3rd ring. Tessa, hey, it's Dylan. His voice dripped with forced cheer, the sound of a man tap dancing over broken glass. Hi, Dylan, I said, slicing a strawberry on my dessert plate. Listen, about the transition, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Totally my fault. I was thinking maybe we could... Dylan, I cut in, sweetly. I don't come back to fires I didn't start. Silence. I let it hang. Sure. Yeah. I get that. It's just, Greg really wants this sorted. And you're kind of critical to operations. I took a bite of my dessert. Am I? Another pause. Tessa, I'm asking you as a colleague. Please, I need this. I actually laughed. Software polite. Good luck, Dylan, I said, and hung up. The next morning, the email leak hit LinkedIn. An anonymous post from inside sources. Company scrambling to recover critical licenses after key compliance officer terminated. Within hours, vendors started pulling inquiries. By noon, a Fortune 500 partner suspended their contract. Gregory's assistant sent me a LinkedIn connection request. I declined. By Wednesday, rumors swirled that Gregory himself was considering a public statement. A legal crisis team had been flown in. Operations were officially on hold. And Dylan? He'd been demoted, quietly, to project coordination lead. No team. No office. Just a shared cubicle near the copier. I watched it unfold from the rooftop of a hotel bar, nursing a cocktail. Not because I needed revenge, but because some lessons need to be learned the hard way. Thursday morning arrived wearing a 3-piece suit and a storm cloud. The board of directors called an emergency session, not via email, not over Zoom. In person, at headquarters. The kind of meeting where careers aren't discussed. They're dissected. Gregory opened the session with his usual charm, which meant exactly 3 minutes of pleasantries before the gloves came off. Gentlemen, ladies, we have a problem. He gestured toward the projected dashboard on the wall. It wasn't a dashboard anymore. It was a crime scene. Red flags, compliance failures, vendor alerts blinking like heart monitors flatlining. The head of risk management cleared his throat. This isn't just an operational hiccup. We're in breach of contract on 8 vendor agreements and 3 federal supply chains. Gregory nodded once. And the licensing authority? Legal slid a file across the polished table. Still revoked, all tied to Tessa. Every single active certification under her name remains invalidated. The CFO, Marla Jennings, known for turning blood into spreadsheets, leaned forward. How the hell did we let this happen? All eyes turned to Dylan. He shrank back in his chair, suddenly fascinated with his watch strap. I was under the impression the licensing could be transferred. Our internal documents said... Gregory slammed a hand flat on the table. The documents? You fired the one person who was the document. Silence thickened, the kind that clings to walls and careers alike. The chairman, Mr. Hargrove, white hair, colder eyes, and steepled his fingers. Was there no oversight on this termination? HR chimed in, voice brittle. We processed the request per Dylan's directive. We assumed due diligence. Hargrove cut her off. You assumed? His voice sliced sharper than any blade. Gregory exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I'm not here to clean up assumptions. I'm here to fix this mess before every client we have walks out the door. He turned to Dylan. You're on leave, effective immediately. Dylan looked like he'd swallowed a stapler. But I can... Out! One word. That's all it took. Dylan stood up, knocking his chair against the marble floor. He left without grabbing his laptop. An hour later, Dylan's access was revoked. His keycard didn't work. His email bounced back. The board wasted no time. Gregory sent a formal request to me, direct from his office. Subject line: Proposal for immediate return, Executive Compliance Consultant. Attached was an offer sheet. 6-month term. Full executive authority over compliance operations. Salary, double. Bonus, guaranteed. And of course, a bulletproof non-disclosure agreement. I read it once, twice. Then I let it sit in my inbox. All day. I didn't respond. By the following morning, vendors started calling me. Some directly. Some through LinkedIn. Some through mutual industry contacts. One even sent a gift basket. Apparently, the rumor mill said I was considering joining a competitor. I wasn't. Yet. But it's amazing how fast a company's power crumbles when the person holding the keys lets go. Gregory tried calling me personally. 4 times. I answered on the 5th. Tessa, he started, voice controlled. I want to make this right. I leaned back in my chair, swirling my coffee. You want to make this right? Because it's right? Or because your shareholders are sharpening their knives? He paused. Smart man. He didn't lie. A little of both. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Good luck with that. And I hung up. That afternoon, an anonymous tip landed on a financial watchdog's desk. Alleged compliance negligence, federal licensing voided, potential breach of public safety protocols. Guess who the whistleblower wasn't? Me. You see, when a company runs on arrogance and blind ambition, it tends to create its own enemies. I didn't need to lift a finger. I just needed to stay out of the blast radius. By Friday, the internal memo leaked. Subject: Critical Risk Mitigation Strategy, Immediate Restructuring. Dylan was listed in the footnote. Role dissolved due to performance-based evaluation. Performance-based. That's corporate code for we just realized you blew up the building and now we're handing you the bill. I wasn't celebrating. Not exactly. But I wasn't crying either. Because here's the thing about being underestimated. They never see you coming. but they sure as hell notice when you're gone. Monday morning hit like a silent alarm clock. No dramatic headlines, no corporate memo leaks, just a quiet panic pulsing beneath the surface of the city's financial district. I could feel it in the way my inbox started humming before sunrise. Gregory sent a follow-up. Subject line: "Let's find a solution. Name your terms." He even included a personal note this time. "Tessa, I respect your position. I value what you've built here. Please let me know how we can bring you back on board. At your full discretion. Happy to discuss any arrangement that works for you." Translation: "We're bleeding out and you're the only tourniquet in town." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to a private folder I titled Receipts. By noon, Gregory upped the ante. A legal proposal. Drafted, signed, and couriered to my apartment door. It offered full executive status, oversight of all compliance departments, globally, profit-sharing options, a blank check on salary negotiation, and a handwritten note in the margins. "We need you. Please." For a man like Gregory Winslow, who once allegedly fired a VP over a lukewarm espresso, this was the corporate equivalent of crawling. I took a photo of the letter, added it to Receipts, and still didn't reply. That afternoon, a headhunter from BioCore called. They weren't subtle. "We heard about the situation." Polished voice, polite interest. The kind of recruiter who doesn't reach out unless your name's already passed through 10 boardrooms. "We'd like to offer you a seat on our Executive Compliance Council. Full autonomy. Compensation package. Well, you'll like it." I leaned back on my couch, flipping through channels. "Why now?" I asked. She chuckled. "Let's just say we like to hire talent when it's in high demand." Translation: "We saw your old company implode and we want to make sure we're not next." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. By Wednesday, the financial news picked up the story. Headlines danced across LinkedIn and industry newsletters. Major compliance breakdown hits. Winslow Enterprises, licensing crisis looms. Key officer departure triggers federal investigation. Did poor leadership sink Winslow's compliance chain? My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. Everyone in the industry already knew. Gregory tried one last Hail Mary. Thursday morning, 7:43 a.m. A town car pulled up in front of my building. A driver stepped out, handed me a sealed envelope, and nodded. "Mr. Winslow's personal request." Inside? A handwritten letter? "Tessa, I won't insult your intelligence with more offers. You've proven your point, and I respect that more than you know. The company can't function without you. If you're willing, I want to meet. No contracts, no HR. Just a conversation. Dinner. Friday. La Rive. My treat." "Gregory." I actually laughed. La Rive. The kind of restaurant where appetizers cost more than my monthly rent when I first started. But I wasn't tempted, because I knew exactly what this was. Not a peace offering. A power play. Gregory's last shot at spinning this as a personal misunderstanding, to save face before the board. I folded the letter once, dropped it into the trash. By Friday, the cracks became craters. 3 vendors filed breach of contract claims. Federal inspectors flagged 2 license renewals as invalid. Stock price dropped 6% overnight. And Gregory? He was photographed leaving the building through the side entrance. No limo. No entourage. The king was bleeding, and no one wanted to be caught holding the sword. I wasn't gloating, but I wasn't apologizing either, because some lessons don't come with memos or management seminars. They come when you realize you fired the wrong person, and she didn't just walk away. She locked the door behind her. It started with a press release. Corporate language dressed in business casual, just vague enough to sound harmless, just pointed enough to shift blame. Winslow Enterprises is proactively restructuring compliance operations to align with evolving industry standards. We remain committed to excellence and transparency. Translation? We're choking, but please keep investing anyway. The release hit the wires at 8 a.m. Friday morning. By 8:03, every investor with half a brain saw straight through it. By 8:15, the first media outlet cracked the story open like a walnut. Winslow's compliance failure. The untold story behind the license scandal. They named names. Dylan's mostly. Gregory's too. They even used the phrase reckless leadership. Not mine, though. I wasn't mentioned. But my absence? That was the loudest part of the story. By noon, Dylan's LinkedIn profile was locked. His bio scrubbed. His corporate achievements wiped clean like an etch-a-sketch under a toddler's tantrum. The official story? Pursuing new opportunities? Unofficially? HR packed up his desk while he sat in a windowless office, signing his exit paperwork. They didn't even give him the courtesy of a Zoom farewell. Gregory's strategy shifted from control to survival. That afternoon, he issued a company-wide memo. Subject line, "Together, we overcome challenges." I read it while sipping a cold brew. It was every cliché in the corporate crisis handbook. We're stronger together. Proud of this team's resilience. Committed to moving forward. And then, tucked neatly in paragraph 5, we've reached out to former leadership to explore collaborative solutions. Former leadership. That was me. They didn't dare name me, but everyone knew. And judging by the 10 pings I got from former colleagues within an hour, the entire company knew too. Gregory wasn't done. That evening, a request landed in my inbox. From legal, marked confidential CEO directive. They wanted me to sign a statement. A brief, polite affirmation that I had parted ways with Winslow amicably and in full mutual respect. No money, no strings, just my name. I stared at it for a good 5 minutes. They didn't want me back. Not really. They wanted my signature to patch the hole in their sinking ship. I drafted my reply carefully. Subject, confidential statement request. Gregory, appreciate the outreach. I've reviewed your request. Unfortunately, I don't sign fiction. Best of luck. Tessa, I hit send. Didn't reread it. Didn't care to. By Saturday morning, the investors had enough. Emergency shareholders meeting, closed doors, no leaks. But I didn't need insider info to know how it went. Because Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a new LinkedIn connection. Gregory Winslow. No message, no note. Just a silent digital olive branch from a man who'd just watched the empire he built start to crumble in real time. I didn't accept. I didn't ignore it either. I left it pending, right where it belonged. Meanwhile, BioCore made their move. A formal offer, signed by their CEO position, head of global compliance strategy, direct report to the board, equity package included. No buzzwords, no performance incentives, just respect. And a line at the end that sealed it. We believe compliance is built on people, not policies. I took a deep breath. And finally, I said yes. That afternoon, I packed my things. Not from an office. From my life tied to a company that only valued me when it was too late. I wasn't leaving bitter. I wasn't leaving angry. I was leaving because I finally understood something most people never do. Your value isn't measured by how loud you shout. It's by how quiet it gets when you're gone. 3 weeks after I signed with BioCore, the news broke. Not a leak. Not a rumor. A full-page feature in the industry's most respected journal. BioCore secures federal compliance officer. Former Winslow exec leads new era. My photo wasn't on the cover, but my name? Front and center in the opening paragraph. I didn't post about it, didn't share it, didn't even like it. But within hours, the congratulatory messages rolled in. Old colleagues, former clients, even a few from competitors I hadn't spoken to in years. And then, the message, Gregory Winslow. Subject, congratulations, no body text, just one word in the subject line. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. It was acceptance. He finally understood. But by the time realization comes knocking, it's usually too late to open the door. Meanwhile, Winslow Enterprises kept bleeding. One by one, their biggest clients walked. Not with press releases, not with dramatic exits, just silent contract withdrawals and quiet partnership dissolutions. Their licensing backlog? Still in review. Federal approval pending. Audit flags stacking up like unpaid invoices. Gregory stepped down by the end of the quarter. The board called it a strategic leadership transition. Translation? They tossed him overboard before the ship hit the rocks. And Dylan? Last I heard, he was freelancing. Some buzzword-laden consultancy gig pitching agile compliance solutions to startups desperate enough to listen. No hard feelings. Some people never learn. And some lessons aren't yours to teach. As for me, I moved into my new office on the 34th floor of BioCore's headquarters. Glass walls, quiet power. No one questioned why I was there. No one asked me to justify my worth. They already knew. And I made sure of one thing. The team I built? I valued them before they became critical. Not after. Because respect isn't a lifeline you toss when you're drowning. It's the foundation you lay before the storms hit. I caught myself watching the city skyline one evening, long after the office had emptied out. The lights below flickered like the heartbeat of a city always chasing the next big thing. I thought about Gregory, about Dylan, about the HR reps who'd slid that glossy termination packet across the table like it was a menu. And I realized they didn't lose because I left. They lost because they never believed I'd leave. They assumed silence meant consent. That being essential meant I'd always stay. That loyalty could be exploited without cost. They learned the hard way. The only thing worse than losing a key player is realizing you pushed them out yourself. The next morning, I walked into my office. On my desk, a single manila envelope. No sender, just my name, handwritten. Inside, a note, in case they ever forget. And a printed copy of Section 9B of my old contract, the clause that started it all. I smiled, pinned it to my bulletin board. Not as a trophy, not as a warning, as a reminder. Because here's the truth no management seminar will ever teach you. The people who build the foundation of a company are rarely the ones you see on stage. They're in the background, they're silent, they're steady, until they're not. If you've ever been overlooked, undervalued, underestimated, let them. Let them think you're replaceable. Let them laugh behind closed doors. Let them call you legacy, outdated, too loyal, too quiet. Because when the day comes, and it always does, they'll realize you weren't holding them back. You were holding them together. And when you finally walk away, that silence will speak louder than any revenge ever could. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. If you've ever been in Tessa's shoes, or are in them now, know this. Your worth isn't defined by their ignorance. It's defined by your ability to walk away without looking back. And trust me, they'll remember you, even if you never say a word. At Thanksgiving dinner, I knocked on the door with my kids. My daughter in a navy dress with little gold stars, my son clutching a crumpled card that said, "Happy Thanksgiving, Grandma." The cold wind bit our faces as we stood on the porch, pumpkin pie balanced in my other hand. I saw movement behind the lace curtain. Then, the door cracked open. My mom peeked out. Her eyes darted between us, me, my daughter, my son. She gave a tight smile, the kind people wear at funerals. Then she said, "We're keeping this a family-only event." Her voice was soft, almost kind, like she was saying, "Sorry, we ran out of seats." But I knew that tone. I'd heard it my whole life, when I wasn't enough, when I wasn't wanted, when I was a problem. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She didn't answer. She just looked past me like I was blocking her view of something better. I felt my daughter shift beside me. Then my son whispered, "Aren't we family?" And right there I felt it. The sharp, familiar sting of being unwanted. I smiled. Tight. Controlled. I bent down and took their hands. "Let's go get pizza." I turned without another word. I didn't flinch when the door closed behind me. Didn't look back when the fall wreath slipped off the nail and landed on the porch with a dull thud. We walked down the driveway, their little hands gripping mine, until we reached the car. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice light. "Who wants extra cheese?" They cheered, because they didn't know. They didn't understand. But I did. I knew this wasn't just a missed dinner. This was the moment my family drew a line and put me on the outside. We ended up at a half-empty pizza place. Paper napkins, greasy plates. My son colored a turkey on the kids' menu. My daughter told the waiter it was our special Thanksgiving pizza party. I laughed. I stirred my soda. And that's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. "My brother." I answered. "Ellen, what the hell did you do?" No hello. No explanation. Just fury. I blinked. "What? Why did the bank freeze the family trust account?" The words hit like a slap. I sat there, heart suddenly still. I leaned back in the vinyl booth and stared at the melted cheese on my daughter's plate. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me, because I didn't freeze that account. At least, not that day. But it turns out, I could. Have you ever realized that the people who treat you like nothing are standing on something you built? I hadn't touched that trust in over a year. But guess whose name was on it? Guess whose signature opened it? And whose could close it? Mine. My money. Their safety net. All tied to a woman they had just shoved out the door. And for the first time in years, I wasn't mad. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. I took a slow sip of my drink and said into the phone, "She told me to leave." So I did. "You didn't have to take it this far." My brother barked. His voice was sharp, accusing, but I was calm. "Funny. You didn't say that when I was paying Mom's mortgage or covering your business loan." The phone went silent. All I could hear was the soft giggle of my daughter showing her brother how to draw a pizza slice. They didn't know a war had just started, or maybe finally ended. I looked at them. My two little anchors in a storm I'd been holding back for years. And quietly, I said it for the first time. They brought this on themselves. Somewhere in the distance, I swear I heard the faint sound of a fuse, hissing its way toward a very big explosion. And in that quiet pizza place, I finally realized this Thanksgiving wasn't about family. It was about finally seeing the truth. That some people aren't your family. They're just the debt collectors of your loyalty. And I was done making payments. I didn't answer my brother's call after that. Not when he texted, "We need to talk." Not when he called again, this time at midnight. Because by then, I wasn't in the mood for talks. I was in the mood for truths. And the truth was, for the past 8 years, I'd been their silent investor. Not in a business. In them. When Mom's house nearly went into foreclosure, I paid the back taxes. When my brother's startup failed, I covered his credit card debt. Even co-signed his next loan. When my sister needed a car to get her life back on track, guess whose name was on the lease? I was the family vault. The bank they never said thank you to. And funny thing about vaults, when you lock them, they tend to stay closed. But the real kicker? They thought I'd never turn the key. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I was cleaning the living room when my phone buzzed again. Mom. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. But something in me, maybe old habit, answered. Her voice slid down the line like ice water. "Ellen, what did you do?" I didn't answer right away. She filled the silence. "Your brother said the trust account is frozen. The family fund, the emergency savings. Why?" I wiped a smudge off the coffee table. "Because I'm not your emergency anymore." There was a sharp inhale. "Don't be childish." I smiled. I'm being accurate. She switched tactics, soft and sharp all at once. You know your father left that account for all of us. It was meant to help the family. I sat down. And who kept it going after he passed? Who paid into it every year when no one else did? You? Silence. I'm done, Mom. I said it like I was setting down a suitcase I'd been carrying for a decade, but she wasn't done. You're punishing us for a misunderstanding? Your sister didn't mean to hurt you. I stared at the blank TV screen. My reflection stared back, tired, thin around the eyes, but sharper than I remembered. She meant it exactly like that. And you all let it happen. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We're family, Ellen. I took a breath and said the words I should have said years ago. Family doesn't slam doors in your face and expect you to fund their lives afterward. I hung up. I sat in that quiet living room, heart pounding not with anger, but with something colder. Clarity. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for their approval or their explanations. I wasn't waiting for a seat at their table. I was building my own. That weekend, I called the bank. And not just about the trust account. I reviewed every loan, every co-signed agreement, every joint obligation with my name on it. The numbers hit me like cold rain. $24,000 on my brother's business line of credit. $6,500 on my sister's car lease. $3,800 still on a family medical loan I co-signed for Mom. My stomach twisted. All this time, I thought I was helping. Turns out, I was just delaying the inevitable. I gave the bank notice. Effective immediately, I wasn't responsible for a single payment beyond my legal obligation. I wouldn't cover shortfalls, wouldn't approve new loans, wouldn't bail them out. The bank rep tried to be polite. This might cause some financial strain on your family. I smiled. I'm aware. I ended the call and looked around my house. The bills on the counter, the fridge nearly empty after I stretched Thanksgiving leftovers, my kids' coats drying on the chairs, and for the first time in years, I felt something I didn't recognize. Lightness. I wasn't cutting them off out of revenge. I was cutting myself loose. Because here's the thing no one tells you about being the strong one. If you never stop carrying people, they forget you can leave. And I had just left. They just didn't know yet how fast the ground would fall out from under them. The fallout started faster than I thought. Monday morning, 8:03 a.m., I was brushing my daughter's hair before school when my phone buzzed on the counter. Incoming call, Mom. I let it ring. Then it rang again. Incoming call, brother, then again. Group FaceTime. I stared at the screen. There they were. My mother, my brother, and my sister. All crammed together on a single screen, sitting at the family dining room table. The same one I hadn't been invited to on Thanksgiving. I tapped accept. Ellen, this has gone far enough. My mother snapped before I could even say hello. My brother leaned in, eyes sharp. You need to fix this. Now. My sister sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a tissue like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Why are you doing this to us? I sat down at my kitchen table, the cold wood pressing against my arms. I smiled. You mean after Mom told me I wasn't welcome? After my son asked if we're even family? Silence. Except for my sister's dramatic sigh. We didn't mean it like that, my brother muttered. I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound that didn't feel like mine. You meant it exactly like that. My mother leaned forward, her eyes hard. We're family. Family sticks together. I held her gaze. Family doesn't lock the door in your face and expect you to pay their bills afterward. There was a flicker, something passing over her face. Guilt? Regret? But it vanished too fast. My sister's voice cracked. You don't know what it's like. I've been trying to hold everything together, and you just abandon us. What am I supposed to do now? I met her gaze through the screen. Stand on your own. For once. A long silence followed, the kind that fills rooms even through a phone. Then my mother said, quieter this time, "Maybe we leaned on you too much. But that's what family does. We pick each other up." I shook my head slowly. Number, I picked everyone up. For years. And no one ever checked if I was standing or bleeding. My sister's voice broke. "So you're just going to watch me get evicted?" I tilted my head. "You watched me walk away with my kids on Thanksgiving and didn't say a word. We're even." I hung up. The phone buzzed again, lighting up with messages. "You're heartless. You're tearing this family apart. What happened to you?" I didn't answer. I didn't even read them. I sat there, letting the quiet settle. And it felt clean, like the air after a storm. Because here's something no one tells you. Closure doesn't always come with forgiveness. Sometimes it comes when you finally stop begging people to see you and start showing them who you've become when you finally see yourself. That afternoon, I took my kids to the park. We ate ice cream on a bench. We laughed when my son spilled sprinkles all over the ground. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about overdue payments or silent resentments. I wasn't wondering if I was enough. I just was. But the silence didn't last. That night, a letter came. Certified mail. I opened it. It was from the family trust's lawyer. Request for immediate review of financial contributions and withdrawal rights. In plain English, they were trying to have me removed from the trust. I laughed, out loud, because if they'd read the terms, the ones I drafted with Dad years ago, they'd know. You can't remove the person who created the fund, or the person who is still, legally, the primary benefactor. But that wasn't even the punchline. Attached was a memo, a handwritten note from my sister. "I know you won't fight us. You never do." I sat back, holding that note, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, amusement. Because they still thought I was the same Ellen. The backup plan. The silent supporter. The bank in human form. They didn't realize I hadn't stopped fighting. I just started fighting for the right person. Me. And now, they were about to find out what it really feels like when the person you depend on walks away. 3 days after the FaceTime ambush, I stood at the bank, the same branch I'd been visiting for over a decade. The manager, Mr. Benson, greeted me like an old friend. "Mrs. Carter, always a pleasure. How can we help today?" I smiled politely. "I'd like to review the family trust." His face shifted, the professional mask slipping on. "Of course. Would you like to discuss contributions or distributions?" I folded my hands on the polished desk. "Neither. I'm here to dissolve it." His eyes widened. "That would require a primary benefactor's signature." I met his gaze. "You're looking at her." The color drained slightly from his face. He rifled through the papers, checking the original documentation. Then his eyes flicked back up. "You do realize this will remove access for the other parties, permanently?" I nodded. "I'm aware." He hesitated. "May I ask, are you certain?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Let me ask you something, Mr. Benson. If you kept giving out loans and no one ever paid you back, would you keep lending?" He blinked. Then slowly he smiled. "I'll have the paperwork ready." I signed every document with a steady hand. Account closed. Funds transferred. To my name. My kids' savings. Our future. I walked out of that bank lighter than I'd felt in years, but I wasn't naive. I knew the calls would come. I just didn't expect them to start before I even got home. The first was from my brother. I let it go to voicemail. The second, from my mother. I didn't answer. The third, a group text. "You've lost your mind. This isn't who you are. Dad would be ashamed." I stared at the words. Dad. The man who taught me to stand up for myself. And the man they were now trying to use against me. I shook my head. Because here's what they didn't understand. Dad wasn't about keeping peace. He was about keeping your dignity. I knew exactly who I was. That night, while my kids slept, I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea and opened the family group chat. The same chat I hadn't heard from. Until now. I typed slowly. You closed the door on me and my children. You made it clear I wasn't family, so I made it official. Effective immediately. I am no longer your bank, your bailout, or your backup plan. You may want to read the trust agreement before you involve lawyers again. Consider this my final withdrawal. From all of you. I hit send. The chat exploded within seconds. My sister. You're heartless. You ruined us. My brother, this is financial betrayal. We'll sue. My mother, I didn't raise you to be cruel. I stared at the messages as they poured in. Accusations, insults, threats. I finished my tea, turned off my phone, and slept like a baby. The next morning, I dropped my kids off at school, and as I pulled into work, my assistant flagged me down. Ellen, HR wants to see you. I frowned. Why? She bit her lip. Your sister posted about you, tagged the company, accused you of financial abuse. I felt the ice settle in my veins, because this wasn't just family drama now. They were trying to hit where it hurt. My job, my reputation. I walked straight to HR, sat down across from my manager. He cleared his throat. We've seen the posts. We need your side. I didn't flinch. I pulled out my laptop, opened the file I'd started compiling months ago. Bank transfers, receipts, text messages, signed agreements. Every time I'd bailed them out. Every dollar I'd spent. I slid the laptop across the table. Here's my side. He scrolled in silence. 5 minutes later, he closed it gently. Thank you. This clears things up. I nodded. Is that all? He gave a small smile. You're good. Case closed. I walked out of that office with my head high. Because here's the thing. People can lie about you, twist the story, rewrite the narrative. But the truth? The truth doesn't blink. And I wasn't afraid to let it speak. The post went live at 7:04 p.m. I didn't plan it like that. Didn't schedule it. Didn't even think twice. I just typed. Not a clapback. Not a name drop. Just the truth. Sometimes the people you love the most expect you to fund their lives, fix their mistakes, and forgive their betrayals. Forever. And when you stop, they call you cruel. If you've ever been guilted into silence, know this. Kindness isn't a debt. And walking away isn't a crime. I attached a screenshot, not of their insults, but of a bank transfer from 2 years ago. The one where I'd covered my sister's overdue rent. I hit post. I turned off my phone. Took my kids out for ice cream. Extra sprinkles. Extra whipped cream. By the time we got home, my phone was vibrating nonstop on the kitchen counter. Notifications, comments, shares. It wasn't just friends. It was strangers. People sharing their own stories. Of being used, of being guilted, of being silenced. I sat down, scrolling through the flood of messages. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. But the real surprise came the next morning. A friend texted me a link. I clicked it. A podcast episode. When Family Becomes Your Biggest Burden. Hosted by someone I'd never heard of. I hit play. 15 minutes in, they quoted my post, word for word. Then they said something that stuck with me. Sometimes breaking away isn't revenge. It's survival. I sat there in my kitchen, listening to strangers dissect my story like it was a case study. And it hit me. I hadn't just shut a door on my family. I'd opened a door for 100 others. But my family, they weren't having it. By noon, my sister posted on her Instagram story, a teary selfie, A long caption. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family. I gave everything to people who turned their backs on me. Family first. Stay strong. They will regret it. I almost laughed. I didn't respond. But other people did. Screenshots started circulating. Her old posts, bragging about finessing her way out of bills. Jokes about making people pay for my mistakes. Even one where she joked about never paying rent, because why have a brother if you can't use him? They weren't even private. She'd put them out there like trophies. Now, they were her downfall. The internet didn't forget. By evening, the hashtag changed. From stay strong to own your actions. I sat back, watching the narrative twist itself into knots. And through it all, I stayed silent. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't have to speak. The truth was loud enough. That night, my phone rang. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. It was my sister. Her voice was soft, small, a version of her I hadn't heard in years. Ellen, you didn't have to do this. I stayed quiet. She sniffled. People are threatening me, messaging me. I'm losing followers. I didn't think you'd actually... I leaned back in my chair. You built the stage. I just turned on the lights. Silence. Then almost a whisper. Do you hate me? I closed my eyes and realized I didn't. I didn't hate her. Hate would require energy, and I'd already given her enough of mine. I opened my eyes. You wanted attention. Now you've got it. She inhaled sharply. Please, can we fix this? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There's no we anymore. I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel bad. I felt free. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is living like they never broke you. New Year's Eve came and went. No calls, no texts, not from my mother, not from my brother, not even my sister. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache. Just rests. It was me, my 2 kids, a couple of party hats, and some dollar store confetti that stuck to our socks for a week. And honestly, it was peaceful. No eggshells, no fake smiles, no pretending I didn't feel invisible in rooms full of people who shared my DNA. But of course, the silence didn't last. Because when people can't reach you, they try other ways. On January 3rd, a letter arrived. From a collections agency. I opened it on the kitchen counter while my daughter colored at the table. Final notice, apartment damages, $9,248.76 due. Guess whose name was on the lease? I stared at the number, something hollow and sharp settling in my chest. I called my sister. Straight to voicemail. I texted her. You trashed the place. You pay for it. No reply. I checked her Instagram story. There she was. Spa day. Gold face mask. Champagne glass in hand. Caption, healing my soul in 2024. I almost laughed. But then, the real hit came. A call from HR. Ellen, we've received a complaint. I blinked. What? Your sister tagged the company in a post. Something about financial abuse and toxic family dynamics. She mentioned your full name. For a second, I couldn't breathe. She hadn't just tried to drag me. She tried to destroy me. I didn't even let HR finish before I opened my laptop. I pulled up the folder I'd been updating for months. Every Venmo payment. Every bank transfer. Every signed lease agreement. Screenshots of her thank you texts. Even a photo of her holding the keys to the apartment. The one I'd paid for. I sent HR the link. Subject line. For your records, the full story. They called back the next day. Thank you, Ellen. We're closing the matter. But I wasn't done, because here's the thing about blood. People think it gives them rights, control. That family ties are chains you can't break. But blood isn't a receipt. It's just biology. And I was done paying interest on a relationship built on guilt. So I posted again. Not a rant, not revenge, just a truth. When someone weaponizes your kindness, it changes you. I used to think silence was strength. Now I know silence is permission. I don't give it anymore. It went viral. People shared it, commented, thanked me. And I realized maybe I wasn't the only one who needed to say it. My sister? She went quiet. She didn't expect me to speak. She only ever knew the version of me who paid the bills and swallowed the pain. She wasn't ready for the version who finally said, enough. A week later, I got tagged in a post on a major platform. The silent sister who finally spoke. Thousands of comments. People who had carried their families like coffins on their backs. And then the screenshots started surfacing. Not mine. Heron old tweets, Instagram posts, bragging about not paying rent, about finessing her way through life. She didn't even bother to make them private, because she never thought anyone would look too closely. Then came the podcast episodes, the think pieces. Let's talk about financial abuse, but the other way around. Her echo chamber collapsed. And me? I stayed silent until the night she called. Her voice? Small, fragile. Ellen, people are threatening me. I stayed quiet. I didn't mean for this to happen. I spoke softly. You built the stage. I just turned on the lights. She sniffled. Do you hate me? I almost smiled. I don't hate you. I hate the version of me I became to keep loving you. She didn't reply. And for the first time, I didn't wait for her to. Because sometimes, closure doesn't come with forgiveness. It comes when you stop letting people rent space in your life. For free. 6 months later. My phone barely rings. My bank account doesn't bleed. My kids wake up smiling. I take them to brunch every Sunday. No doorbells, no rejections, no guilt. Just us. Last Sunday, my son handed me a crayon drawing. A house. 3 stick figures holding hands. Above it, in his shaky handwriting, we are safe here. I stared at it for a long time. Safe. That was the word I didn't know I needed. Not loved, not appreciated. Safe. And if you're reading this, if your loyalty has ever felt like a leash, if your kindness has been used as a weapon, let this be your permission slip. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose peace, even if it leaves them confused. Because family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up. It's who doesn't flinch when you fall. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is close the door they slammed in your face. For good.